What the Screen Took. A story of a hidden addiction, a marriage at breaking point, and the truth that finally came through. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16. She knew something was wrong before she had a name for it. Not a dramatic knowing, not a single moment of revelation, a slow, accumulated awareness built from 1,000 small signals over 3 years of marriage, each one small enough to dismiss individually, and together forming something she could no longer look away from. The way he turned the phone over when she walked into the room, the way the laptop was always closed before she reached the desk, the way he looked at her, or more accurately, the way he had stopped looking at her. The specific withdrawal of attention that had happened so gradually, she had told herself for 2 years that she was imagining it. She was not imagining it. Her name is Reese Calloway. She is 31 years old. She has been married to her husband Drew for 4 years, and the Thursday evening in February when she found what was on his phone and his computer is the evening that split their marriage into a before and an after. What happened in the after is the reason this story is worth telling. Before we move forward with the story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help us to grow this channel to uplift more people. Drew and Reese Calloway had been the kind of couple that other couples used as a reference point. They had met at 26, and the way that people who are paying attention sometimes meet, at a mutual friends gathering, a conversation that ran 3 hours past what either of them had planned to stay, the specific recognition of someone who thinks the way you think and finds the things funny that you find funny and asks the questions you were already asking. They had dated for 2 years, with the ease of people who had found the right fit and knew it. Drew proposed on a hiking trail outside of Asheville, North Carolina, with a ring he had been carrying in his jacket pocket for 6 weeks, waiting for a moment that felt right. The moment was unremarkable externally and completely right internally, which is how the best moments tend to work. They married at 28. They settled in Charlotte, where Drew worked in commercial insurance and Reese ran a small interior design practice from a studio attached to their house. The first year was good. The second year, Reese began to notice things she filed away without examining. Drew's attention had a quality she couldn't name precisely. Not absent, but not quite landed. He was present in the room and elsewhere simultaneously, a division of attention that she attributed to work stress and then to the general demands of building a life together. She attributed it to those things because the alternative she was not yet ready to consider. By year 3, the marriage's intimate life had diminished in ways that Reese took personally, which was the most corrosive effect of what was happening and the one that did the most lasting damage. She had internalized the withdrawal as information about herself, about her appearance, about her value to the man she had married. She began looking at herself differently in the mirror. She began wondering what was wrong with her. There was nothing wrong with her. Drew Calloway had a secret that was 17 years old. He had been 14 when he first encountered explicit content online, not sought, not deliberate, the specific and unremarkable way that a generation of young men encountered it in the early years of the internet, before anyone had fully understood what those early encounters could do to a developing mind. He had been 14 years old, alone in his room, with access to something that his parents had no framework for protecting him from because they themselves had no framework for it. The initial encounter became a return. The return became a habit. The habit became, over the years of adolescence and young adulthood, a compulsion, something that operated below the level of deliberate choice, something he reached for in the specific way people reach for whatever they have learned produces relief, regardless of the cost. He had never discussed it with anyone. Not with his parents, who were good people who loved him and who did not know. Not with the friends he had grown up with, because the culture of young men does not produce that conversation easily. Not with the pastor of the church he had attended in high school, a warm man who preached grace and who Drew genuinely respected, and with whom he had, for one close moment at 18, nearly said something. He had not said it. He had taken it into his marriage. He had told himself, with the specific self-deception that accompanies any long-maintained compulsion, that he had it managed, that it didn't affect anything, that the time he spent was his own time and affected no one. He was wrong about all three things. What the compulsion had done to his brain's experience of attraction, the way it had recalibrated what his attention responded to and what it required, was not a thing he understood clinically. He only understood the effects. That Reese, the woman he genuinely loved, was competing in his neural landscape with something that had been there longer than she had, and that she was losing that competition without knowing the competition existed. The shame he carried was enormous. He carried it in the same locked room he had been carrying it in since he was 14 years old. The phone turning over when she entered the room? The laptop closed before she reached the desk. These were the visible signals, and they were not all. There was the pattern of late nights. Drew in the office with the door closed after she had gone to bed, which she had accepted as work-related for 2 years before the work explanation stopped fully accounting for the frequency. There was the specific quality of distraction during their time together, present in body and elsewhere in mind, which she had named to him twice and which he had attributed to stress both times with enough specificity and sincerity that she had accepted it. There was the way he looked at certain things when they were out together, a quality of attention, quickly corrected, that she noticed and then dismissed because noticing it felt like an accusation she was not ready to make. There was the change in how he spoke to her and about her. Not dramatic, not cruel, but a slow erosion of the specific, attentive warmth he had brought to their early years. The compliments that had come naturally becoming something she had to prompt. The sense that she was being seen less and less clearly as time passed. She had gained nothing. She had changed nothing. She had spent 2 years trying to identify what she had done differently, what had shifted in her, what she needed to correct. She had done nothing. The shift was entirely on his side of the equation. She did not know that yet. She found it on a Thursday. He had left his phone on the kitchen counter, unlocked, face up, an unusual lapse that would later strike her as significant in the way of things that feel, in retrospect, like inevitabilities. She had picked it up to check the time. The screen showed something she was not supposed to see. She stood at the kitchen counter for a long time. She went to the office. She opened the laptop. What she found in the next 15 minutes constituted the full picture, the history, the scope, the regularity of it, the specific evidence of a habit maintained over years. She was systematic about it, the way people are systematic when they are in a state of shock, and the only available action is gathering information, because gathering information is the only thing that feels like ground. She was sitting at the desk when Drew came home. She did not move. He came into the office. He saw the open laptop. His face did something that she would remember for a long time. The specific sequence of a man encountering the collapse of a concealment he had maintained for years. The initial calculation, rapidly overridden by something that might have been relief, covered quickly by denial.
It's not what you think."
She looked at him.
She did not say anything.
He said it again with slightly different phrasing. She turned to the laptop so he could see the screen.
He stopped talking.
What followed was the hardest conversation of either of their lives. Reese was not loud. She was the specific, controlled quiet of someone who is holding something enormous and has not yet decided what to do with it. She asked questions with the methodical precision of someone who needs the full picture before she can process what the picture means. He answered, haltingly at first, the instinct toward management and minimization that had operated for 17 years trying to find a purchase. And then, as the questions continued and the evidence was visible, and the specific exhaustion of maintaining a secret for 17 years finally had an exit, something gave way. He told her all of it. 14 years old, the progression, the years of the marriage, the shame he had been carrying and the lies he had told himself about its containment. The specific agony of watching himself become less present to her and being unable to stop it without confessing what was driving the withdrawal. He cried. Reese watched him cry. She felt things she had not anticipated feeling. She had expected to feel only the things that were already present: betrayal, anger, the specific humiliation of having spent 2 years believing the problem was herself. Those things were real and large. But she also felt, underneath them, something unexpected. She felt grief. For him. For the 14-year-old boy in a room with no one to talk to and no framework for what he had encountered. For the 17 years he had carried it in a locked room. For the marriage they had both been living in the shadow of something only one of them knew was there. She did not act on the grief. She stood up. She said, "I need you to go stay somewhere else tonight." He left. He drove to a hotel near the airport. He sat on the edge of the bed in a room that was as anonymous and neutral as any space can be, the specific non-place of a hotel room, containing nothing personal, reflecting nothing back. He had spent 17 years managing the shame. Managing meant containing, keeping it in the locked room, ensuring it did not affect the parts of his life that were visible, maintaining the performance of someone who was not carrying what he was carrying. The management was over. There was nothing left to manage. He sat in the hotel room and felt the full, unmanaged weight of 17 years arrive all at once. The original encounter at 14, every choice since, the years of the marriage, Reese's face when she turned the laptop toward him. He had told himself in various forms over 17 years that the harm was contained, that it was a private thing, that it affected only him. He understood now what it had cost her. The 2 years of her looking at herself in the mirror and wondering what was wrong with her. The compliments she had stopped expecting. The attention that had been given to something else while she was in the same room.
He had done that.
Not from cruelty, from something that had started at 14 with a single encounter and had been running on its own momentum ever since, fed and maintained and never submitted to anyone or anything that could have interrupted it. He sat on the edge of the hotel bed and felt what he had never let himself fully feel. He felt the weight of what it was. He put his face in his hands. And in that specific, stripped down, nowhere left to go moment, not in a church, not with any religious context, not with any vocabulary for what he was doing, he said something out loud to whatever might be listening. "I can't carry this anymore. I have been carrying it since I was 14 years old, and I cannot do it anymore. I don't know if there is anything that can reach this, but if there is, I need it.
because I have nothing left." The hotel room was quiet. He did not feel an immediate transformation. He felt something smaller and more honest than that. He felt, for the first time in 17 years, like he had put the thing down. Just for a moment. Just enough to breathe. Reese called her closest friend that night, a woman named Sylvia who had known her since college and who received the call with the focused attention of a person who understands that what is being offered to them is serious and should be treated as such. She did not tell Reese what to do. She listened, she asked careful questions, she was present in the specific way of someone who knows that their job in this moment is not to have answers. She also said at the end of the call, "There's a pastor I want you to talk to. Not about religion, about this specific thing. He has worked with couples through situations like this, and he is not going to tell you what to decide." The pastor was at Cornerstone Seventh-day Adventist Church in Charlotte. His name was Pastor Solomon Grant. He was 59 years old, a deliberate, unhurried man who had been in ministry for 30 years and who had, in those 30 years, sat with enough people in enough broken situations to have developed a specific and valuable quality: the ability to hold the full truth of a situation without flinching from any part of it.
Reese called him on a Friday morning. She came in on Monday.
She told him everything. He listened for 35 minutes without interrupting. When she finished, he said, "Thank you for telling me all of it. I want to ask you something, and I want you to know there is no right answer." "Okay." He said, "What do you want your marriage to be? Not what you think it can be given what's happened, not what you think you should want. What do you actually want?" She was quiet for a long time. She said, "I wanted what we had in the first year, before I started feeling like I was disappearing to him." He nodded. "That's important to name." He told her about the clinical landscape of what Drew was dealing with, not to diminish her experience or to advocate for a particular decision, but because she deserved to understand the mechanism. He talked about how compulsive behavior patterns around explicit content affected the brain, how they altered the experience of real intimacy, how they were both a habit and a wound, and how the wound, in Drew's case, appeared to go back to adolescence. None of this is your fault. I want to say that plainly. The way you have been seeing yourself for the past 2 years, the question of what was wrong with you, that was the direct result of a problem that was entirely his to own. He owed you the truth a long time ago. He paused. He also needs real help, not willpower, not better intentions, specific, sustained, clinical help alongside whatever he does with his faith. He looked at her. He said, "The decision about whether to stay is yours. I will support you either way. But if you are willing to consider staying, I want to tell you what working through this actually looks like, because it is not a quick road, and you deserve to know what you're choosing." Drew called Pastor Grant the following day. He had not known Reese had spoken to him. She had not told him. He called because the hotel room prayer had left him with something he could not identify and something he could not ignore, and he did not know what to do with either of those things. Pastor Grant was not surprised to hear from him. He came in on Tuesday. Pastor Grant did not begin with a moral assessment. He began with the question, "How old were you when it started?" 14. Pastor Grant nodded. "Did you ever tell anyone?" "No." The pastor was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "James 5:16. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. I have been in ministry for 30 years, and I have sat with more men carrying exactly what you are carrying than you would believe. Men who started young, who never told anyone, who carried it alone for decades because the shame was too large and the silence felt safer." He looked at Drew. The silence never makes it smaller, it makes it permanent. The verse does not say, confess so that you will be punished. It says, confess so that you may be healed. Healing requires the thing coming out of the dark.
Drew sat with that.
He said, is it too late? For your marriage? I don't know. That's Reese's decision to make, and I'm not going to tell her what to make it. For you, no, it is not too late. Not for the healing, not for the thing underneath the habit, which is the actual wound. Not for the man you were before 14 had a chance to shape what came after. He referred Drew to a licensed counselor that week, a man who worked specifically with compulsive behavior patterns and who had a clinical framework that complemented the pastoral one without replacing it.
Drew made the appointment.
He kept it.
3 weeks after the Thursday.
Reese sat in her studio, the room she had designed herself, the one that was most specifically hers in the house, and she thought about what she wanted, not what she should want, not what the correct decision looked like from the outside, what she, Reese Calloway, actually wanted. She thought about the first year, the hiking trail, the conversation that ran 3 hours past what either of them had planned to stay, the man who had proposed in a moment that was unremarkable externally and completely right internally. She thought about Drew in the office doorway. The concealment finally collapsed, crying in a way she had never seen him cry. She thought about what Pastor Grant had said. It is not a quick road. You deserve to know what you're choosing. She thought about 2 years of looking in the mirror and wondering what was wrong with her, and the specific anger of knowing that the answer was nothing, that there had never been anything wrong with her. She thought about a 14-year-old boy in a room with no one to talk to. She thought about her own voice on the phone with Sylvia. I wanted what we had in the first year.
She sat in the studio for a long time.
Then she picked up her phone. She called Drew. She said, I'm not ready to say we're going to be okay. I don't know if we're going to be okay. What you did damaged something that I don't know if I can fully get back. She paused. But I am willing to find out, with conditions, with counseling, with complete transparency going forward, and with the understanding that I am not staying out of obligation. I am staying because I want what we were, and I'm not willing to close the door on that without knowing whether it's still possible. Thank you.
Don't thank me yet. This is going to be hard. He said, I know.
I know you know. 6 months later, the road had been exactly what Pastor Grant had said it would be. Not quick, not linear, not without the specific difficulty of rebuilding trust that has been fractured at a foundational level. There were sessions with the counselor, there were sessions with Pastor Grant together, there were evenings when the progress felt real, and evenings when Reese felt the anger as fresh as the Thursday it had arrived. There were also evenings that felt like the first year. Not many, not yet, but real ones. On a Saturday morning, 6 months after the Thursday, Drew and Reese walked into Cornerstone Seventh-day Adventist Church together for the first time. Not because Pastor Grant had asked them to, because Drew had said one evening over dinner that the prayer in the hotel room had started something he didn't have language for, and he wanted to find the language.
I'll come with you. They sat in a pew near the middle. Pastor Grant was preaching from James 5. He read verse 16, "Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed."
He said, I want to talk about what healing actually requires, not the performance of healing, not the appearance of resolution while the wound continues underneath. Actual healing. The verse tells us the mechanism, confession and prayer. Not confession as punishment, confession as the act of bringing what was hidden into the light, where it can be addressed by something larger than the person who was carrying it alone. He paused. Secrets live in the dark. They grow in the dark. They do the most damage in the dark. The light is not kind to secrets, but it is very kind to the people carrying them.
Drew was looking at the front of the church. Reese was looking at her hands.
She reached over.
She took his hand. Not because everything was resolved, not because the damage was gone, because they were in the same room on the same road, moving in the same direction. That was enough for that morning.
It was. She was learning enough to start with. James 5:16 is one of the most practically specific verses in the New Testament. It does not say, feel better about your sin. It does not say, manage your sin more effectively. It says, confess to each other, bring it into the light, pray for each other, and the outcome, not the reward, but the natural consequence of the process, is healing. Drew Calloway carried something for 17 years that multiplied in the dark. It multiplied because the dark is where those things grow. The shame that was supposed to motivate change became, instead, the reason change was impossible, because shame requires concealment, and concealment feeds the thing that produced the shame.
This is the specific cruelty of the cycle.
The way out of the cycle is exactly what the verse describes, not secrecy, but confession. Not to everyone, not in every context, but to the specific, trusted, accountable relationships that can receive the truth and pray with you through the healing of it. For the men who are carrying what Drew carried, who started young, who told no one, who have been managing rather than addressing for years or decades, the message of this story is the message of James 5:16. The confession is not the end of the road. It is the beginning of the healing. For the women who have been living in Reese's experience, who internalized someone else's wound as information about their own insufficiency, the message is this: the mirror was lying. It was showing you the output of someone else's problem, processed through your relationship and landing on your sense of yourself. You were not the reason. You were not the problem. You were the person closest to the blast radius of something that had nothing to do with your value. Your value was never in question. And for the marriages that are sitting in the middle of this story right now, in the days or weeks or months after the Thursday, trying to determine whether the road back exists and whether it is worth walking, there is no single right answer. Some marriages survive this and become something stronger for having been through it honestly. Some do not. Both outcomes are real and both have dignity. What James 5:16 offers is not a guarantee of outcome. It offers a process. And the process, confession, prayer, healing, is available to anyone willing to bring what is hidden into the light. The light is hard. It is also the only place anything actually heals. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. James 5:16. If you or someone you love is struggling with compulsive behavior patterns, help is available. CovenantEyes.com. Accountability and filtering tools. PureDesireMinistries.org. Recovery support for individuals and couples. American Association of Christian Counselors, AACC.net. Find a licensed counselor. For couples navigating the impact of a partner's compulsive behavior, focus on the family counseling 1-855-771-HELP. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to be notified about more inspirational stories on redemption and hope.